Hello and welcome to The Art of Aging, which is part of the Abundant Aging podcast series from United Church Homes. On this show, we look at what it means to age in America and in other places around the world with powerful, positive, and empowering conversations that can challenge, encourage, and inspire everybody everywhere to age with abundance. I am so pleased to have Andy Tubman on the show today, who is one of the founders and leaders of SingFit. And we're going to be talking about the concept of music as medicine today. Super exciting. Andy is bringing cognitive healthcare to the forefront, and as the co-founder and chief clinical officer for Musical Health Technologies, Andy's music as medicine solution, SingFit, is used in more than 500 long-term care facilities, as well as rehabilitation and caregiver organizations in the United States. And its use has significantly improved the health and happiness of people suffering from dementia and mental health challenges. In this role, Andy navigates both the healthcare and music industries to successfully scale music as medicine for the first time in history. A graduate of Temple University Music Therapy Department and board-certified music therapist, Andy's experience includes working with children, adults, and seniors in a variety of settings, including inpatient care. He has a broad background in music therapy with expertise in scaling programs in therapeutic music. He travels, he consults with medical systems internationally on implementing music as medicine, and is a frequent speaker on the intersection of music and health at conferences that include the American Telemedicine Association, Leading Age, here, Senior Living 100, and the International Council on Aging. He's also been featured in probably magazines you'd never heard of, like Fast Company and Forbes and the Los Angeles Business Journal and USA Today. Oh, and Billboard Magazine too. So, Andy, so pleased that you made the time to join us. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
Yeah. So I want to open up the show with a question that I ask a lot of the guests. I mean, we just obviously heard a lot about you, and you're a guy that could be doing a lot with your talents and creative energy and all the rest. But you're doing this. You're doing musical therapy program for people with dementia, for people with physical. You're doing this. What led you to this? How did this all get started for you?
Well, it all started back in 19. So
I know it's a big question, but
it's a big one.
Yeah.
But I didn't choose music therapy. Music therapy chose me. As I can do this as short as possible, the first day of college, my best friend from high school didn't show up and ended up in a very bad car accident the night before. Went through a windshield, traumatic brain injury, the whole deal. And he was in a coma, right? And this was, this tragic high school story. Well, it was college, but high school story. He was in a coma. And I had heard, even though I was basically, a baseball player, but I had heard that people in comas could hear and process music. And so my friend and I had started playing bad Elvis together and just goofing around, like everybody does. And so I started to sneak in the ICU and play bad Elvis for my buddy who was in the coma. So fast forward through pneumonia, 3 or 4 months, he gets discharged, still in a coma, but to a more stable room. And it was big visiting night. And I had gotten better at guitar because I was playing so much. And I was playing Pink Floyd's Wish You Were Here. And Sean actually came out of the coma mouthing the words to Wish You Were Here. And everybody in the room was just like, tears.
It's crazy. Wow.
Yeah.
Curious.
And so the nurse is like, hey, you should probably talk to our music therapist. And I'm like, what music therapy? And so I talked it was at Moss Rehab in Philadelphia, and they had a music therapist there. And it just so happened that in Philadelphia, Temple had one of the best programs. So that was it was just a very natural thing for me to do. I felt very comfortable working in music therapy in school. And then I had a inpatient, like you said before, and a private practice for a number of years with folks with neurological challenges. And what I found in California was that access to a music therapist, paying for a music therapist, basically out of pocket. There's some insurers, covering it, but it's a massive, massive climb for an individual in a private practice as a music therapist. And so it's just was not scalable in any way. And my dad had this idea around word cueing because he was an opera singer. And at the
Wait,
opera,
so back this up a little bit. So here you are.
yeah,
You've had this magical discovery of music and its impact on people in comas, and then but you already had your dad was an opera singer. That's kind of crazy.
right. So he was a very creative guy and an opera singer, and may have gotten famous except kids come along, right? Because he was starting to do some auditions in New York and singing operas around Philadelphia. The short of it is that you fast forward through college and through a number 10, 15 years of private practice in a variety of settings, and me realizing how there's only 8,000, 7,000 music therapists in the US, right? And then how many of those folks are actually in senior care with children, with stroke, right? So like it's a very small number. And so my dad had this idea throughout his whole life in the opera stage to use this word cueing that they use in the opera stage to feed the libretto when singers forget, and to do this so he could learn songs in his car, right? He, like, in the late 60s, 70s, he wanted this opera prompter in his car. And he tried every kind of, entrepreneurial thing, never flew. But once the app economy got to a place that all you needed to do is build the software, I called my sister, who is tech, and business.
Yep.
And I was like,
amazing, Rachel. Yeah, yeah.
yeah. And I was like, hey, I think we got to do Dad's idea. I just learned that it's an evidence-based speech therapy and music therapy practice, and I think it's time to scale some therapeutic music.
Well,
And so that's where I got to.
yeah, but so I really want to dive into this concept of music as medicine, because I think it makes sense, and because we know inherently, I mean, I love music myself. I'm a guy that always seems to have a song in his head. I know, it's just this energy that's associated with it, at least for me personally. But before we do that, can you explain the SingFit method to our listeners?
Yeah. So what we've done is, the real core of it, the differentiator, is the difference between a passive listening experience that everyone is very familiar with, and you probably are able to very effectively medicate yourself with music by listening, right? As a high functioning, well, relatively, no kidding, but as a high functioning,
relatively is fair, Andy, but yeah.
But as a very high functioning person, you're able to say, I want to go for a run, I'm going to use this. I want to relax, I'm going to play this. Right? You're able to differentiate. However, when you get into a healthcare setting, this passive experience actually becomes very complicated to administer, right? If someone's in pain, why are you doing this music? What's the relationship of the song? So the passive experience becomes difficult in terms of yielding consistent therapeutic outcomes. So what we did was we took my dad's idea of this word cueing. So there's no reading, right? No reading like karaoke scrolling. There's no reading. It's a word cue that speaks the words to you before you need to sing. You listen and repeat the words with a guide singer. So you're actively making the music, and that engages the brain globally. Language centers, timing centers, motor centers. The whole thing is engaged and rocking.
And so that kind of leads into the next question about just music as medicine. So how does music really impact the brain? What does it trigger?
Hui.
Like I said, man, simple questions.
Yeah, I mean that it's I mean, not to parallel myself with a doctor, but that's like asking a doctor, how does medicine work, right? It's not it's kind of that big, but it really what I try to look at is the specific case, right? What are the conditions that you're trying to affect, and how? Is it someone that had less hemisphere damage of the brain with a stroke or as a lesion, and you need to specifically work around the Broca's area. And if so, maybe drumming is the right way because that stimulates the Broca's area, specifically rhythmic training, right? Is it that same stroke person, but they had damage in different parts of the brain, and language is challenging, formation of words and motor planning, and you get them singing, right? To exercise this, engage the whole brain, but really exercise specific motor planning and different kinds of vowel formations. You get them singing different kinds of songs, the B songs and things. So in general, like, I think of music as the ultimate organizer for the human, right? It creates this grid in time, and you're really able to, the human being really wants to feel organized and have their expectations fulfilled. And if you apply music the right way, in general, this can happen. And then once you understand that, you can start diving into, like I was saying before, the stroke, the dementia, the different challenges, the preventative, right? All these different ideas. I hope that that's a big question.
I love this. I love the angle you're taking on the language part of it. I think that if a song's familiar with you, I think I've seen videos of you and oh, when the Saints come marching in, you start with, oh, when the Saints, and then everybody else sort of naturally says, oh, well, the Saints. And I also think about movies and the Glenn Campbell documentary that came out and the documentary about Tony Bennett, both very accomplished musical artists, both who unfortunately were diagnosed with Alzheimer's, and both of whom continued performing just because of the brain's ability to remember. So is music truly kind of an abstract language as part of the brain that's really just protected? I don't know if I'm
No, I'm with you. I'm with you. So back to my theory on Tony Bennett and the Glenn Campbell idea is that in general, and not specifically this is not, I'm saying researched, this is conceptual, that you have this basically from a song or songs that we've grown up with or have practiced your entire life, like Tony Bennett and Glenn Campbell. You create basically this neuro imprint, right? So that means, though, to create that song, to express that song, you're again engaging globally, language centers, motor centers, planning centers, subcortical, topical, short-term, long-term, like the whole brain is rocking, expressing that song. And so when those guys practice and work their entire lives around, lots of songs, but really, to really be a songster, like the neuro connections and the neural networks around those songs are so strong that in these scenarios, they stayed intact, even while the disease itself is shrinking the brain, creating holes in different parts of the brain, right? Is damaging the mass of the brain and reducing functionality in a lot of different ways. But the theory would be is that their neural network around the song process has strengthened so strong, right? So much that they can continue that, and it just kind of clicks in for them.
Wow. And the other question I wanted to ask you was more, we're talking about people and their practice of music, and I think about lyrics and language and how people associate lyrics and language, obviously with their own upbringing, their own culture, their own lived experiences, placing. I mean, the songs we listened to in our childhood, but then there's something different that around rhythm. And I'm fascinated with electronic music. I love electronic music that doesn't really have lyrics in it unless they're on loop repeat. I'm fascinated with the art of DJing and the fact that every song is in 4/4 times, so that you can pretty much mix in everything. It's just mathematical. And then from that, you have these experiences with people who sort of like drumming circles. I'm just trying to think, if I think about what are universal human values, universal human experiences, such as gathering and celebrating around food, I also think that gathering around drumming has to be something that is very, very, first of all, universal, And second of all, very foundational to the way that our brains operate. So have you done have any thoughts? Have you done any research into really what does that rhythm do for us?
I have a lot of thoughts, but one idea that is universal, as you're pointing out, is the very first sound that we hear is the mother's heartbeat. So we are the groove, right? Like literally on a cellular level, we are part of that beat and we are pulsating, right? So so that has conditioned us to, really be acclimated to rhythm and drumming, and to have that be an organizer, like I said. And so in EDM, where there's all these grooves and everything going on and all this different music, and everyone's at a crazy festival, underneath it all is four to the floor, right? And that
Right.
really helps to organize and ground, right? And so there's a real relationship to a baby in the womb being grounded by the mother's heartbeat. And even in a festival situation, because this division of time gives us a sense of security and grounding, I would say.
I love that. I've never thought about it in that way, and because when I think about that type of music, I think about not just 4/4, but, multiples of four, because you can have
Yeah.
probably a dozen different sound elements looping around on the same track. And then people can find different, what people could be dancing to that same song, but dancing to any one of those 12 different
Right.
elements, right? And that's really interesting. There's sort of a foundational there, but then people tend to maybe acclimate to different parts of that, but yet they're all kind of sharing the same thing.
Yes, very much so. Very much so. Yeah.
So when you think about how this applies in a therapeutic way,
Yeah.
people can cue into lyrics, they can cue into rhythm.
Yeah.
And I've seen just, knowing you and your organization and seeing you guys in action, I just think it's wonderful. You go into these rooms of people that seem to be, by all intents and purposes, checked out. And then you start in with musical therapy and people just come alive. I mean, what's that like for you?
I mean, so it's very interesting because when I do one-to-one work, right, it's a much more intense clinical music therapy work. And it has gone in my career and in my life from working with infants with genetic diseases to seniors with late stage dementia, right? And so like a whole variety of folks in between. um and that is extremely obviously very rewarding. But when we started SingFit, what was interesting is, one, I realized that it's really, to be clinical music therapy, there has to be a music therapist on site, an assessment done, clinical goals created. So we've created what we're calling is therapeutic music. And and not to belittle therapeutic music, because if you can get somebody in utilizing music as a yoga practice, as a daily routine, as a way to stimulate and energize, like you're saying, and focus it on different things, you really have the advantage of scale. And the first time that we sold into a company of like 30 communities, we weren't doing training online. I had to go to the communities and train the facilitators. It's much more efficient now. But the next, and I was like, oh, I should get back to my kids and doing clinical work. And I'm like, why am I doing this? I'm not a tech person. What the hell am I doing? But the next week, we got all these calls because there's thousands and thousands of people from me training for 2 days, 35 facilitators. Now there's thousands and thousands of people singing 3 to 5 times a week for their health. And I'm like, okay, maybe there's something here. Maybe there's something to this. Yeah.
And that's just that success by good feeling, which is absolutely wonderful. So
Oh,
all
it's beautiful.
congratulations to you for arranging this wonderful life for you and Rachel, where you get to do this stuff. And I know, I mean, you guys been in business for nearly 10 years, or maybe over 10 years, or
Yeah.
what have you. I mean, you're the OGs in the space as far as I'm concerned. And I know that you have a spirit of continuous refinement and continuous improvement. So I gotta, so if I wanted to start any musical therapy program, so I guess maybe there's a couple of different types of musical therapy program. What are the essential elements that you have to bring in order for a music to have the potential for success?
Yeah, so I think it's really sitting down and really understanding what you're looking to do. When you say a music therapy program, if you're saying specifically in senior care,
I,
what
I
you,
you know what, and you're right. I've been going way too broad with you on this podcast,
no,
man.
no
But
problem.
I think let's talk about people with. For me, I think where I've seen music therapy probably be the most successful in terms of wellness for the person and the family is most particularized in cognitive decline, Alzheimer's, things like that, where one assumes that someone is closed off from the world, and this is even in later stage, dementias. They're closed off. They're not, and it's a stressful situation. And here's an opportunity for an experience that just lifts everyone up, you
Yes.
know and so that's the if I were to pick up if I, the number one use case that I have for programs like yours are for people with cognitive Alzheimer's, that sort of area. So maybe we can talk about that. I mean, what if you had to put together a therapy program, a musical therapy program for that type of an audience? What are the essential elements?
So essential elements for group, right? It sounds like we're talking about group and people singing together, which is
Yes.
obviously a powerful thing because it is known, researched that when you sing, you release the hormone, the neurochemical oxytocin, which helps bonding, right? So this is just something that we've been using for years and years, and you feel connected to everybody. So this is one element when you're singing together in a group or with somebody else. This oxytocin is released, and oxytocin is not easy to release. There's a lot of there's a lot of challenges. You might have to eat chocolate or pet an animal to release oxytocin. So or have a baby, right? It's not a lot easy to get that going. So singing
So
does this.
oxytocin is different from serotonin.
It is different. Yes, serotonin is more of like a mood elevator, but oxytocin is known as this chemical that is like when a woman has a baby in utero, or it's or just been born or has been born, uh, oxytocin is flowing in this, creating this feeling of my baby, right? My connection to my love, my baby, right? This is oxytocin really at work here. Yeah. Whereas the serotonins and the dopamines are really, there's many actual functions of them, but in general, they are affecting mood quite a bit.
Right. So you're going to a festival again and everyone's dancing around, where you're all dancing the same thing, and you get this feeling of unification and you're part of this group and all that. That's oxytocin.
Yeah, I'd have to know it. I'd have to research to see if, but movement, if that releases oxytocin, I would
Oxytocin.
believe so. I would believe so, but I know that singing does, but I'm not sure of the research on just movement releasing
Got it.
oxytocin.
Okay. Got it. And sorry to throw you off track. So we're talking about singing oxytocin. So in a group situation,
Yeah.
we're talking about this to first of all unify a group.
Yes. One is that to create a program, a music therapy program, to get that oxytocin flowing, to get the dopamines and serotonins flowing, and really elevate people's mood and get them organized. So like to approach that in a big way, I would say that unfortunately, there's not a ton of funding for a clinical music therapist typically. Sometimes people hire music therapists to be entertainers. And I don't love that because I'm a snob. So I think you can, when you really have people who are scared to get in the shower or are really fragile, right, in their emotional state with dementia, or are agitated, you have that music therapist as a consultant and then bringing them in on the very fragile scenarios to really utilize music in a deep way, hopefully. And then they can consult also on how to create a music program that's going to be really effective. Like, Michael, I walked into the lobby of a community once, and everybody knows that they should be playing music, right, all the time, which is not
Yeah.
necessarily the truth. But everyone thinks, and you go into the hotel lobby, you go into any lobby, there's music.
Yeah.
So they're playing Elvis, but the speakers in the ceiling are distorted. And I'm just like, well, if you
They are
want,
always just right. You can sort of half figure out what's playing. I get it. Yeah.
right, like, so if you want to agitate someone with dementia, that's the way to go. Right.
I never thought about that before, but yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So I'm just saying, like, there's an awareness, hopefully, that a music therapist brings to the table on, is that if, are we setting up small groups of 8 to 12 people for doing a deeper therapeutic process? Is this going to be, and entertainment is great, like, and 40 people, 50 people in a room and having, really fun exercise and movement, it's awesome. But I'm just saying, back to your question, how do you set up a program? You set it up by really thinking about what are your outcomes that you're looking for, and then you back it in that way. And I would suggest having a music therapist to consult with, even if you can't fund them for a full-time job kind of thing.
And that leads to another thought I had, Andy, which is just the human element of all of this, because we're in a world now with, I don't know if you've ever heard of artificial intelligence before, or AI,
Yeah.
and I think that we're very interested, at least at United Church Homes, on the boundary between where the AI stops and the human starts. We think that there's a lot of opportunity with AI to sort of standardize tasks that aren't value added, to do maybe even regular voice check-ins and things like that. But can AI do music therapy? Should it?
It's a hard question. I think that the AI or machine learning can um, assist in the deeper clinical of music therapy, right? Like, really gathering research for the therapist, really analyzing maybe the how the music therapy is affecting someone in terms of biometrics and outcomes. In terms of what, just to bring it back to like a SingFit technology solution, I think there's more application for AI, right?
Mhm.
Because you're not necessarily working with the most fragile patients, which I would suggest not to do that, right? I would say keep that very in the clinical side. But in terms of getting people singing and drumming and exercise and these kinds of things, and managing folks at home, helping to manage behaviors and cognitive decline and preventative things, that AI can and will and is being utilized to gather baseline information, to feed the digital solutions, and then while someone's engaging in a singing process, monitoring those different biometrics, the AI could monitor the outcomes and really start looking at a graph, right? So if you had a spirometer, something, I'm just in theory, right? If you had a spirometer on somebody
Sorry, what's
that
this barometer?
I think it's the thing that does hold on, is that the breathing?
Blood pressure cuff? Is that the 120 over 80?
Sorry, that's the breathing one. Not a spirometer, accelerometer. I think accelerometer. I think that's what it is. So if you have a
Oh, yeah,
watch
sure, yeah.
for movement, right? And I'm not saying that this is the way, but just as an example, if someone with dementia had a watch with a very sensitive movement sensor on the watch, what you would find probably is that in the late afternoon, they have agitation, this typical sundowners, if they have that predictable. And you would start seeing that movement happening in reflection of in the watch, right? In the accelerometer. And so what could then happen is if you're utilizing AI, the AI would understand this, would prescribe or push specific activities. And then over time, you could see the graph could print out reports to see how it affected agitation over time.
Right.
Right. And so it's basically utilizing, hopefully in an ethical way, how to improve, different kind of wellness and health outcomes.
Any other technologies out there that you're excited by?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's kind of what we're talking about. Like we have a company that we're starting a partnership with called MiCare, MIICARE. And they're out of the UK. We launched in the UK a month or so ago.
Oh, terrific. Yeah,
Yeah.
congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, we're starting to get some pilots going on now. And what's interesting about MiCare is that they have worked for like 8 years. It's not just like, hey, here's a new software platform, but they've worked a long time to really integrate sensors and a Siri-like voice called Monica to really integrate in the home or in a given room a lot of this behavioral movement and biometric information and voice analysis for mood and different things. And so we're starting to work with them a bit to really look at how to create musical solutions once the assessments have figured out that this would be an appropriate, solution for an individual.
Do you think there's going to be a world where, you're going to go to your doctor and he's going to say to you, because I know like in Canada, doctors prescribe national park passes. You think there's a world where you go to the doctor and said, you know what, man, you need more Zeppelin in your life, or you really need to know what you need more Enya in your life, or you need more, I don't know, Nation of Language in your life. I want to be modern to show the kids out there that I'm modern. Great band, by the way. Do you think that's a conceivable reality for us? Like you can be that perspective, or music like that,
100%, man. Like that's why we went to the UK, because the NHS invited us a couple years ago because they heard about us. They invited us to go to an accelerator there. And it's specifically because two things. One, they have social prescribing. So the doctors are able to say, I don't know about you need more Enya in your life, but they are able to prescribe preventative and social programming for their patients there and have the NHS pay for it. And the other thing is that they've been using singing and music for years and years and years and doing a ton of research over there. So we don't have to convince them. They're like, does it help my patient? And we're like, yes, this is how it does it. And they're like, great, let's do some pilots and get it rocking. So that is conceivably a very real future. And it's hopefully going to be even more real very shortly in the UK.
Well, we're going to have you back on when that program's more developed, because you're right. I mean, the UK does have some very innovative programs going on in the national health system, and they were also, on the subject of something like social isolation. They're the first ones to sort of put somebody into cabinet. They call it the Minister for Loneliness.
Yeah.
And this is my joke. This is not the name of the new Morrissey album. It's an actual minister in the UK cabinet.
Exactly.
That's from somewhere. So, Andy, we could talk for on a bunch of different subjects. I know that your time is limited. Thank you for the time that you're giving us. But we do always ask our guests 3 questions about aging and their personal experience of aging. And can I ask those questions of you?
Yeah, of course.
All right. But before we do that, where can we find you? Where can people find out more information about SingFit? So
simply singfit.com. That's easy. And, you can reach me at info@singfit.com, SINGFIT. And we're on Instagram and Facebook and on all the socials. And I can send you, those specific links as well.
Yep.
Um, yeah, that's pretty much the deal. SingFit.com, and you can't really miss me.
All right. And when we put this video up, we'll be including those links as we promote it. So, okay, 3 questions about aging. Here's question number 1. So,
Okay.
Andy, when you think about how you've aged,
Yeah.
what do you think has changed about you or grown with you that you really like about yourself?
Well, hopefully for everybody, but this is definitely I'm a slow learner, and so what I have realized, and the advantage of aging, the main advantage for me of aging, is that it enables you to see patterns. And so, when I'm 17 or 22, right, as things start moving, you don't know what these patterns are, right? And so I think as I age, I can see my own patterns, see patterns in the world, and I can integrate them in a calmer, less traumatic way, and possibly even in a positive way, because I know that that's going up and it's going to go down, and now it's going to go up again. So there's no fighting this, and this is how it is. And so it's aging, I think, really enables you to see how things occur over time and enables you to be good with it and how to utilize that knowledge.
Yeah, and I think somebody explained to me once the difference between chance and luck. And chance is just once you start seeing the patterns, then you kind of get lucky. You can start to predict. You make more interesting choices for yourself. So
Well
that's
said.
very compelling. So Andy, question number 2: what has surprised you the most about you as you've aged?
Um, it it is a hard question because it's deep, but it also could be fun. And I guess that there's gray, a lot of gray going on, right? And here, like, but when I sleep, I eat clean and vitamins, and sometimes I'll go out, but like I'm pretty clean in general, in terms of behaviors. And I don't know if that's a part of it, but I really do perceive myself as like 19 or 20. And,
Yeah,
and so
yeah,
I'm not good when I see people, like, I don't know how old they are. Like, typically I'll have a lot of energy and just, rocking through things. And when I interact with people, I'm kind of goofy and over the top. And like, cause like at the office, everyone's just like, oh, there's this guy again, right? Because
yeah.
I know you're supposed to be a manager and you're supposed to be calm and you're supposed to let people know this is how we do this and let's make you the best you are. And I'm just like, no, dude, just do it like this, blah. Right? And so I'm still like, I can't kind of get over the 19-year-old thing. Yeah,
That's among the things I like about you, Andy. Is just the energy that you bring to these experiences, and I think that's what really sticks with people, and in a really good way, by the way. So,
thank you.
all right, question number 3: has there ever been someone that you've met or someone that's been in your life that has set a good example for you in aging? Someone that says, "Oh, when I grow up, I want to be like that guy," or someone that I'll leave it there. What comes
Yeah.
to your mind?
I mean, immediately, um, this might be a little cheesy, but my professor from college, my advisor, who I was very lucky to be assigned to, Dr. Cheryl Delio, and she still, I mean, I'm not going to state her age because she'd kill me, but she's retired and she's still literally going all over the world, setting up music therapy programs, speaking to the heads of state in Italy to integrate music in clinical ways into their healthcare systems. Um, finishing a program, a new music therapy program in Japan, and getting them certified and up and licensed. So there's like, she's just but when you talk to her, she's as sweet and as humble and fun, and like you would never know that she is a badass and is like the researcher. And she just finished, literally like a couple years ago, she finished the ethics of music therapy. And I think she's just putting out now another book of like, end of life care for music therapy, like the textbooks that will be used in every program around the world. And, she's a heavyweight. So, and she swims all the time, and she laughs, and she's awesome. So I would definitely hope that I can, age like that.
Terrific. And maybe with your influence, we can get her as a guest on a show, because she just sounds an absolutely terrific human being.
She is a wealth of knowledge in many ways. Yeah.
Yeah. And so are you, Andy. I mean, and again, I can't thank you enough for taking the time to be on the show today. Thank you for being a great guest. But most of all, I want to thank our listeners. Thank you for listening to this episode of The Art of Aging, which is part of the Abundant Aging podcast series from United Church Homes. And we want to hear from you. What role has music played in your life? Have you had any personal experiences of music with your loved ones? Maybe somebody with a cognitive diagnosis, and you've seen them just come alive with music. Do you have other ideas for the show? What do you think? Please tell us at abundantagingpodcast.com.
May I just thank you and say, like, I appreciate your deep dive into, how to utilize music in the world, and your respect for the idea itself. So I appreciate you having me on and taking a deep dive with me. I appreciate it.
Andy, thank you so much for that. And just remind folks, if you want to learn more about what Andy and Rachel are doing at SingFit, please singfit.com, info@singfit.com. We have our Ruth Frost Parker Center. That's www.unitedchurchhomes.org/Parker-Center. That is our thought leadership arm. We are working to end ageism. We have our annual symposium in October, so please check that out. And we hope that you join us again on another episode of the Art of Aging, part of the Abundant Aging podcast series. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.